With the F1 testing finally kicking off in Bahrain, we got to see the new cars this season in all of their glory. And of course, the RB20 was part of it as well. The elements that the Austrian team kept hidden from the public when the car was launched last week were now revealed. And it's safe to say that this new weapon might be the turning point this season that will keep them at the top. How massive is this, and could it mean that no one will be able to catch Red Bull for yet another season? During this pre-season and the car launches, significant attention was drawn to Red Bull's innovative shift in side pod design, particularly focusing on the minimalist inlets, which were a talking point for many news outlets and pundits. This departure from their previous approach, featuring a vertical opening reminiscent of past Mercedes designs, coincides with their competitors' adoption of versions akin to those used by the reigning world champions since the ground effect era began. It appears that Red Bull may have reached the performance ceiling with their prior concept, characterised by a high inlet and underbite element, prompting these revisions, which potentially unveil a newfound advantage as the RB20 showcases a notably different configuration, employing an overbite instead. As the car made its debut during pre-season testing in Bahrain, a clearer understanding emerged regarding Red Bull's modifications, indicating that the launch spec vehicle is not yet the final iteration. The inlet system seems to comprise two openings, a slender vertical channel along the chassis side, resembling the setup witnessed at the factory launch, and a prominent main inlet situated beneath the overbite, resembling the mouth of a stingray, and the presence of the vertical channel echoes Ferrari's bypass duct introduced last season, though its exact role, whether it merges airflow with the main bulk flow for cooling purposes or serves a distinct aerodynamic function, remains uncertain at this stage. It's very plausible, however, that the airflow is being routed to the engine cover outlets, for example, as they've been segmented and the rearward outlet has already been closed off whilst the car's been out on track. We now also have confirmation of the side pod's upper bodywork geometry, which does include a subtle water slide gully that works down into the Coke bottle region at the rear of the car. Meanwhile, Red Bull is also taking advantage of the change in regulations for 2024 that allow for additional driver cooling apertures on the chassis, with two small snorkels seen pressed into the chassis upper panel. Aside from the side pods, another noteworthy feature on the RB20 is the set of inlets situated around the halo and engine cover, and these inlets, positioned at the front of the redesigned engine cover, resemble the configuration utilised by Mercedes in the previous season, featuring raised shoulders and deep gullies to enhance airflow. However, Red Bull has taken a step further by housing the inlets behind the cockpit, allowing them to capture and internally redistribute airflow around the cockpit and halo, and this adjustment likely aims to mitigate aerodynamic losses in this area of the car. Additionally, the RB20 reveals outlets on the exterior wall of the engine cover, along with a series of outlets integrated into the gully section, intended to expel internal heat and direct it towards the haunch section of the engine cover bodywork. The RB20 also has a more refined floor with numerous raised fins halfway down the longitudinal direction, and this is different compared to last year, which had a much more continuous line through to the rear of the car. So the new floor will likely be used to create a sort of seal to increase the efficiency of the ground effects. Speaking during F1's testing coverage, Sky Sports' Ted Kravitz offered some insight into Red Bull's side pods and cooling. How are they cooling it? Where's the air going to go into the side pods to cool the car? Well, we have our answer, he said. There is the vertical side pod entry, but actually there's a hidden side pod air intake just around the O of Oracle, just north upstream of it on the side pod. Do you remember last year they had the underbite effectively for the side pod entry, so the hole was above and then it went down into the side pod? Well, they've flipped that. They've reversed that. They've turned it on its head. It's an overbite now. The top of the side pod sticks out, and then the underneath is where they are taking in air for the radiators to cool. Given the substantial design changes, there's still some uncertainty whether Red Bull can make work, with Kravitz describing it as a big question mark. No doubt, radiator technology has come on and Red Bull has taken advantage of that. They don't need such big side pod entries to cool the car, but this is just one of the main things that they've changed that is the big question mark. Is it going to work? He added. Are those air cooling Mercedes-like cannons that we can see, those big sausages, the cooling cucumbers going to the back of the car like the Mercedes, are they going to work? Are these new side pods going to work? Is this new nose going to work? Red Bull's decision to pursue ideas similar to Mercedes has prompted a great deal of intrigue, but its motorsport advisor, Helmut Marko, has offered some words of caution about its approach. He's well aware that while the zero-pod solution offered brilliant performance figures in the wind tunnel, Mercedes found itself unable to extract that much from them in real life. That's why he says this week's test in Bahrain will be critical for the team in allowing it to work out whether or not its own idea can be used in reality. They were also convinced by the data of their side pod concept, he added. In practice, it didn't work at all, and we will now see in the tests whether we can successfully implement this solution or, let's say, a similar solution. Adrian Newey would always like to have cars without radiators. Of course, that's not possible for the engineers to carry out the idea, but it's logical. The key difference between the RB20 and Mercedes W14 at the start of last season lies in Red Bull's development of the superior floor since 2022, which has only seen improvements since then. This, coupled with its optimal interaction with the suspension devised by Newey, is poised to address many of the issues and limitations experienced by Mercedes over the past 2 seasons. And unlike last year's Mercedes, where the driver's seating position was notably too far forward relative to the car's centre, causing instability and hindering rear-end feedback, Red Bull appears to have circumvented this problem. Lewis Hamilton's complaints about the lack of rear-end feel due to cockpit positioning underscored the challenge of extracting maximum performance from the package. In contrast, Red Bull's setup seems to offer plenty of rear stability, particularly for Max Verstappen, allowing for potential optimization of this more aggressive package. Red Bull will have a big season. There is absolutely no doubt about that, because even with the revamped RB20, which surprised both of their drivers at first, Sergio Perez stated that considering last year's dominance, one wouldn't expect such significant changes, saying how it's a brave move. And world champion Max Verstappen, after seeing the RB20's drawings for the first time at the end of 2023, acknowledged its distinctiveness, but praised it as a controlled, aggressive approach, aligning with Red Bull's tendency to stay ahead by recognizing limitations in existing designs and implementing new solutions before rivals even realise they're needed. And despite minimal development on the RB19 throughout 2023, Red Bull's superiority was maintained, partly due to cost-cutting measures and aerodynamic testing restrictions. Whether or not any team can catch up to the Milton Keynes squad, only time will tell. But first impressions are not that good for Red Bull's rivals. However, Formula One is a sport that has been known to bring many surprises in the past, so we'll not count any team off right now. Yes, Red Bull have got it right in this era of regulations, but any team can put up more than a decent fight against them. Then we're still waiting from the results of Christian Horner's allegation investigation, and how will they end up, because it can definitely change the way their season is going. Yep, it was business as usual in the first day of testing for Red Bull, but will that be the case when the season starts and beyond? It's anyone's guess. What do you think? Will Red Bull dominate this season as well? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll see you very soon.